I'm an intern this year. I've been at Nettlehorse since August. I've not met most of you, but I probably know some of your kids. So this is just a quick reminder to mute your microphone and use the chat box for questions. You can also like raise a Google hand if you want to ask the question out loud. That's fine with me too. And unfortunately, I don't think I can see you and advance the slides at the same time. So let me know if anything pops up. Okay, so this is just going to be an overview. You're definitely going to get more information as time goes on, but things have changed, as Ms. Giordano said, so we're just trying to keep you in the loop. So we now use GoCPS, and that is where you will be able to apply to schools. You can do a lot of research on GoCPS to find like which schools and programs might be a good fit for your kid. So it's nice because it's all in one place. It's my understanding that this is newer, so that's what you'll be using. And so between October and December of 8th grade, families can apply to high schools. Between October and December, you can also apply to elementary schools and pre-K. We're not really going to talk much about that today. So we'll be talking about district high schools, charter high schools, and then like special ed programs a little bit. Okay, so there are 3 application phases. Explore, which is just looking at the different programs that might be the best fit. There are open houses in the fall. I think it depends on the school. We went to visit a couple of schools this fall. Some places had virtual open houses or like tours, and some places had in person. I'm not sure what it's going to look like next year. Then the second phase is applying to programs, and that's between October and December. And then selection is when you find which school that you applied to, you got an offer to. And that's usually in spring. We don't know 100% this year yet. This is our first year of like the changes. So we're thinking that we're going to hear for this year's 8th graders in the spring. It's usually late March, but we don't know. So when we have more information about that, we'll let you know. Okay, so when you apply to a school, or when your kid applies to a school, you're actually applying to a program, not the school. So you wouldn't really be just like applying to Lincoln Park. You would be applying to like a program at Lincoln Park. So the like purple school is kind of showing you that's the school, but there might be 3 programs there, and you can apply to all 3 of them. And then high schools are categorized mostly in 2 categories. The first one is choice programs. So, well, actually, the first one I'm going to say is selective enrollment, and that's on the right side, and that's the like 11 schools listed there. We have some students that have in recent years gone to Jones, Lane. I'm sure all of them, Ms. Giordano would know, but so any schools that aren't listed in those 11 selective enrollment schools and that are still in CPS are choice programs. So that's the neighborhood schools, magnet schools, career and technical education schools, military schools, international baccalaureate or IB schools, and charter schools. We're going to talk a little bit about the different, like what those different things mean. And then before this year, selective enrollment and some choice programs required students to meet a certain GPA and certain NWEA MAP test score in order to apply to it. And as of this year, there are no eligibility requirements, academic eligibility requirements for any high school programs. So no matter what GPA you have, or no matter what not NWEA, they don't take the NWEA anymore, but no matter what their test scores are, they can still apply. And I did hear a little.
So that is just for, the question was grades don't count at all anymore. That's actually just for the eligibility. Selection, something that's totally different. Before you couldn't even apply to a program that had eligibility requirements that you didn't meet. And now there are no eligibility requirements to apply.
Okay, so first one we're going to talk about is neighborhood school. And so that just basically means it's the school that is like in your neighborhood. So it's like the one that's closest to where you live. So a lot of people, if you live near Nettlehurst, your neighborhood school is probably Lakeview High School. Some people's neighborhood school might be Lincoln Park. It could be Amundsen. It depends on where you live. And then you actually don't need to apply. If you live near Nettlehurst and you want your student to go to Lakeview High School, they don't actually have to apply. They can, but they're guaranteed a seat there, and there are no admission screenings.
The one thing that I would point out about that is that the guaranteed seat is in the general education program. So Lakeview doesn't have any other programs because they're wall-to-wall STEM. So that STEM experience every student is going to get no matter what. But for instance, Lincoln Park does have other programs that students can apply to. And so that will vary for the neighborhood students. Some of the programs neighborhood students can get into, you do have to apply so that they know your intention. But some of them, like the IB program, for instance, no neighborhood student gets into any IB program just because they're in the neighborhood. So that guaranteed seats in the general education program, and then after that it varies.
And then there are magnet schools and programs. Some examples of these would be Lincoln Park. They have a drama program. They have a couple different arts and music programs. Von Steuben and Sen has a dance program. With these schools and programs, it really varies. So attendance varies. It depends on the school. Some give preference if you live closer, some don't. And then same with an application. And they could either be through, you could be accepted either through random lottery or for points based on admission screenings or academic achievement, GPA. So with these, it kind of varies. So if you have questions about these, at the end of this, we're going to have some research opportunities where you can look at the schools, and you can always reach out to us if you have questions too. And then career and technical education. An example of this would be Alcott's pre-engineering program. This one also, these can vary also, but you do need to apply, and it's either through random lottery or points. We're going to talk more about points later also. And then military service leadership academies. There's a couple in Chicago. I think the one nearest to us is Rickover Naval Academy. No attendance boundaries. You do need to apply. You can get in through points. And you have to attend an information session during 8th grade if you want to go there just to see what the school offers. And then international baccalaureate or IB programs. Some examples are Amundsen, Lincoln Park, and Sen. They don't have attendance boundaries, but you do need to apply. And then you also have to go to an information session to kind of learn more about what international baccalaureate is. And you're accepted in through academic achievement. And then charter schools, there's a bunch of noble schools, I think, in Chicago. So those are all charter schools. They're like part of CPS, but also a charter school. Most don't have attendance boundaries. You do need to apply. It's random lottery, but sometimes there's a sibling preference and no admission screening. And then selective enrollment schools, none of them have attendance boundaries. You do need to apply. Students are accepted by points, and then admission screenings, no, but there is no more selective enrollment exam. So that's something that's new this year. Ms. Giordano says this sometimes during, like when we're meeting with students, like sometimes students are like saying, it seems like everybody's going to a selective enrollment school, and that's not necessarily the case. We in the past have had definitely some students go to selective enrollment schools, but definitely not everyone. And there's a lot of good like programs out there that are not a selective enrollment school. So like a lot of IB programs, or a lot of schools have honors programs or AP classes. So the selective enrollment schools that we see some kids go to are Jones, Whitney Young, Lane Tech, and Northside College Prep. Okay, and then some of you may have heard of this. It's the GROW community, and that's with Amundsen and Lakeview. So basically, I think the best way to describe it is that Nettlehorse students kind of have a priority when it comes to getting into Amundsen and Lakeview. We don't know what the like percentage of acceptance is going to be for Amundsen because their numbers have gone up a lot in the last couple of years. So it's not a guarantee that the students are getting into Amundsen, but they do have like a special preference just because they go to Nettlehorst. Okay, I'm gonna pause for a second. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I want to clarify. So that priority is for Amundsen. For Lakeview, as far as we've been told, it is the fact that any Nettlehorst student is guaranteed, as far as I've been told, that they're guaranteed a seat at Lakeview. So I know majority of our Nettlehorst students do happen to live in the neighborhood, but we do have some students who are outside of the Nettlehorst attendance boundary. So for those students, even though they don't live in Lakeview or near Lakeview High School, just because they attend Nettlehorst, as long as they apply because of GROW community, they'll automatically get a seat at Lakeview. And then that's the same with Amundsen. So you don't have to live in the Lakeview neighborhood. You just have to attend Nettlehorst to get that priority admission preference for Amundsen. I wanted to see if there were questions about programs. I have a couple of things that I wanted to point out, but if there were specific questions about programs, this would be a good time to ask. And I do see your question, Lindsay. I'll get there too. So someone did ask about AP. Lindsay asked about AP classes. So AP classes and honors classes too. It's really misleading because there is an honors program at Lincoln Park. And so that makes it sound like that's the only way to get access to honors classes, which isn't the case. Most high schools, I would like to say all, but you never know, there could be one that doesn't offer honors classes and AP classes. The only difference between those and then the honors program at Lincoln Park is that Lincoln Park, the expectation is you're taking honors, all honors, as many honors as you can. And then in other programs, like even at Lincoln Park, you don't have to be in the honors program to take honors classes. So at any other high school, it's just kind of an a la carte as you qualify as a student based on your grades. So maybe you've got a student who does really well in math, and so they qualify for honors math classes, but English isn't their strong suit. It's kind of nice because they get to tailor the program to their strengths. So just want to clarify that name, that the fact that there's an honors program can be misleading. There are honors classes at every high school, as far as I'm aware, and the same thing for AP. And people also ask, what's the difference between selective enrollment and other class or other programs? Selective enrollment in high schools, the minimum is honors for every class, for every student, and then they can take AP above that. So that's what's different between selective enrollment versus other schools. And then International Baccalaureate, the info sessions are really good for learning what the programs are like, because they are a special type of program. I think it's maybe a little bit beyond the scope of tonight's presentation to talk about it, other than I would say do a little bit of research about IB, because it is universal around the globe in how they teach and what their scope and sequence is and things like that. Trying to remember if we talk about, I'll also answer your question about the test. So there is an there is a test that 8th graders take, and that's part of the high school admissions process. What makes it different is that there used to be a separate test just for selective enrollment, and that is no longer the case. So they actually took that test and named it the high school admissions test. And now every 8th grader takes it. And then any program that uses academics to select students will use that and their grades. And so that's also selective enrollment. So it takes one less thing, one thing off of those 8th graders' plates. If they're interested in selective enrollment, they don't have an extra thing that they have to do, and they don't have the block of like having to get to a school on a Saturday morning. Now everyone is taking this test at school on a school day, like at their own school, and then that's what's used. So that was a good question. Ms. Dans, do you want to answer there's a question about what is the Grow Community Program and how is it different than just attending Lakeview or Amundsen as a neighborhood student? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just a priority in getting into the general education program there.
Yep, exactly. So for those students who maybe aren't in the Nettlehurst attendance boundary, it gives them an option to get into those to get into Lakeview, or to have a better chance at getting into Amundsen. But the actual curriculum is exactly the same at Lakeview. At Amundsen, I don't know how they're going to do it if Grow goes away for them, because like Maddie said, their attendance has grown so much. Right now, they do have a different kind of track for the Grow education students. That is a kind of a general education track with the opportunity for some honors classes. And they have gone wall-to-wall IB. And so it could be that they use their IB career pathways track in the future. I don't know. For right now, the difference is it is more of a general education track than IB. And again, even with that, within IB, there's more of like a college prep, like rigorous course or like track, and then they've got their career pathways, which is a little less rigorous of an IB pathway. So very confusing, but I can talk you through if you have questions.
And then I see a question about test prep. We didn't have a test prep after school third party program last fall. I don't know what the plan is for next fall.
We actually did, well, this school year's fall, we had the one prior, it was kind of, we were supposed to have a spring session for 7th graders for NWEA, but that fell apart because there was no NWEA. But this fall, we did have a test prep company come for our 8th graders for their high school admissions test. And so we will probably do that again this fall. There's always demand for it. And that is a paid option. We just let a company come use Nettlehurst, so that way there's that convenience factor in terms of transportation for families, but you do have to pay whatever their going price is.
Okay. Any other questions, or else I will move on? Okay. Oh, what prep program will be offered?
This year we had Test Prep Chicago come and do their, it's like an 8th grade high school admissions test prep course. And it was 8 weeks, and they do a diagnostic at the beginning to see where students are at. And then they spend time reviewing all of the math and ELA topics that would be expected to be covered on that test. And then another diagnostic test at the end. So they get that kind of practice test experience. They get review on all of those key topics. And then they learn some test taking skills as well.
And what's covered or what's on the test is supposed to have been covered in just through their regular learning. So it's not like required to have test prep, and we, don't want to say that you have to pay this money to get it, because it's not necessary. But we also recommend, I remember Khan Academy and No Red Ink, just to like brush up on some of the skills, especially like math things that they might have not done in a while. Okay, so back to the program types. So like I said before, there are 2 main categories of programs. So the choice programs and then selective enrollment. So the choice programs here on the screen are in like the pinkish red, and selective enrollment are in the purple. So kind of think of them like separately when applying, because you can apply to up to 20 choice programs, and then you can apply to up to 6 selective enrollment programs. So in total, you could apply to 26 schools. And then with each category, so with the choice programs, you're going to rank them 1 to 20. If you decide to apply to 20, do not have to. And then same with selective enrollment. Separately, you're going to rank them 1 to 6. And then you'll receive the single best offer if qualified and seats are available. So basically it's like an algorithm or like a computer-based system. So if you rank your favorite school number 1 and you meet their requirements and they decide to give you an offer, they will offer that number 1 school, and they won't even look at like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down to 20 for choice programs. So it's important to rank it the way that, that with the highest one that you like the most. Same with selective enrollment. So let's say you got your number 1 choice program and then your number 2 selective enrollment. Then you would actually have 2 offers. Or, if you didn't get any of the selective enrollment, but you got your 5th choice school, then that would be your offer. Hope that the way that I'm explaining that isn't confusing, but it's a little bit confusing. So I welcome any and all questions. Okay, so this is just a little bit more about the choice program selection process. So it's either going to be through a lottery or a point system. And then sometimes there are like preferences, like if the student has like an older sibling, like maybe they're in 10th grade and they, go there, then that will be listed on the application. Proximity, so where you live. Let me see, the ones that I've noticed the most would probably be siblings and proximity. Yeah, I don't know. Mr. Giordano, I haven't really heard about a lot of those other ones, so I don't know how often they happen. Oh, you're muted.
Proximity is not very common. But one thing is you do get for IB programs, like I said, you don't get automatically, as if you're in the neighborhood for a high school that offers IB program, you don't get automatic entry, but you do get 50 bonus points. So that's a proximity factor that works in your favor. And then tier comes into play for selective enrollment more than anything else. The overlay boundary really is only one school that I'm aware of, Jones Law and Jones Law and Jones, the other one that's I'm blanking on right now, but yeah, continuing enrollment doesn't apply to us because a Nettle Horse doesn't feed into a high school program of its own.
So there are some priority preferences. I would say the sibling and proximity ones are probably the most common. And then these are, so on the left side is what makes up the points that you would get to apply. So the high school admissions exam, which we talked about a little bit, and that replaced the NWEA MAP test. So they don't take that anymore. They just take the high school admissions exam. Their final 7th grade grades, so they're not like, each individual quarter. It's like the final, the average. And then not all schools have the admission screenings or essays, but some of them do. So those can, add points. And then if it's lottery, then it's just a random generated lottery system. And then with the selective enrollment, it's the point system and the tier system. And I don't know if I'm going to do a good job explaining the tiers.
I can take that. I can take it.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the origin is that Chicago tried to make it an equitable process for everyone to access selective enrollment. And so they look at the school, or they look at all of the little pockets of neighborhoods, not even like all of Lakeview. It gets even smaller than that. And they look at the socioeconomic status of that little pocket. And the higher the average like family income, I think they say that there are other factors, but I think more than anything, it is just income. The higher the income, the higher the tier number. So most of the Nettlehorst area is tier 4. There's a little pocket that's up by Wrigley, that's tier 3. And then what they do is the 30% of the seats for selective enrollment are filled by the students who have the highest points no matter what. And then the remaining 70% of seats are split evenly amongst the 4 tiers. That way tier 4 students are only competing against other tier 4 students. Tier 1 students are only competing against other tier 1 students because they recognize things like having a higher income means that you can pay for a private tutor, you can pay for a babysitter. So the students are getting ample time to work on their homework versus, in a lower income neighborhood, your 7th grade kid might be doing the babysitting and they don't have the time for the homework and they don't have the tutor that's helping, refresh their memory. And so their grades might be lower, their test scores might be lower. And so it wouldn't necessarily be fair for them to be competing against the tier 4 students. So I always kind of try to explain it to our students as, it's not that they get an easier chance getting in. They can get in with fewer points. It's that you're just competing against peers who have the same kinds of access and opportunities as you. So hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you. And then the selection process, it used to be the NWEA MAP scores, 7th grade final grades, and the selective enrollment exam. So that's kind of wiped away, and now is just the 7th grade final grades and then the high school admissions test. Oh, sorry, this is gonna get all of it up at once. Okay. So timelines, the admissions test was November of last year, was like early November. So I would assume it would be like maybe around the first week of November of 2022. And then there was a makeup a month later, but that was only for like extenuating circumstances. So in March, April, sometime in the spring, the offers are issued. And then there's a second round of offers that happens in like June or July. And waitlist offers begin after each application round. So a waitlist will open like after the March, April offers, then the waitlist opens in May. And then there's a second waitlist that opens in June. And I think it says it on here, but let me double check. I think you can, if you're on the wait list, you could get an offer into February of the next year. I thought that was on there somewhere, but let's see it. Okay.
So there is a good question. Yeah, it is actually that there are 2 rounds of applications, not just 2 rounds of wait list. But yes, the second round is dependent on what seats are available. So it tends to be a much smaller list. Selective enrollment never ends up in the second round of applications. The programs that I see that are familiar names, the programs I see in the second round of applications are generally the arts programs at Lincoln Park and at Chi Arts. There's not a whole lot else that our students generally apply to that has seats left over in the second round.
Okay, and then the last section of this presentation is mostly like research or resources for doing research. So the first one that we have on here is the CPS school profile page. So you can just like basically go, if you type in CPS school profile, type in the school and just do some research. It tells you what kind of programs they have, how many students go there. There's a lot of information there. And then you can also go on the CPS school locator and look at like what school, you type in your address and it tells you like kind of what schools are in the radius of being near you. And that will also tell you what your neighborhood school is. So if you're like, I'm not sure if my neighborhood school is going to be Lakeview or Lincoln Park, then it will, when you type in your address and I think and hit search, it just comes up in red. So that is one way to look at different high schools and their programs. Another website that we recommend looking at is High School Bound. I think the web address is HSBound. We'll send out this presentation too, so you can see it there. But then you can look at also type in your address and see what's near you, the different programs. If I like this one because you can look by like sports, like different sports that a school has or different like clubs. And then Miss Giordano on her Google site, which is on the Nettlehorse website, if you go to like the staff websites and then Miss Giordano's Google site is linked there, has a ton of resources and information. She updates that with the like different open house dates and stuff when in the fall. So that's a good resource also.
One thing that I do want to point out for the profile page, I'm gonna, if you don't mind stopping sharing your screen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't mean to hit the present. Sorry, I can't click and talk. Okay. So they added something to this profile page that is really helpful. And so I wanted to show you what that looks like. So I'm gonna click on this link. If it wants to act as a link. It doesn't want to act as a link. So we'll just go there. We'll just open up a tab. So this is cps.edu/schools.
I just linked it in the chat too.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna make this bigger so it looks the normal way. So you can search for a school there. So for instance, let's look at Lincoln Park High School. You can start typing their name and it'll come up. And then you would think that if you wanted to learn more about what programs they had, you would want to click on programs. So that's actually tricky. You want to click on admissions. And then they will list every program that's at that school. And you can see how they pick students, what their selections are based on. And then over here on the side, what I think is really interesting is how many students applied and how many offers were given out. So you can see that the drama program had 17 students admitted, and there were 359 who applied. Their honors, double honors, which this is actually another good thing to point out. They've changed the name a little bit. It's called the IB MYP Honors Double Honors Program because they have allowed students to start taking a la carte IB courses in that honors program. So I think it has to bear IB in the name. You can see that there were 550 seats given out, but 3,162 applicants. So you can do the math and see how many seats are given out generally out of everyone who applies. And granted, this isn't saying that everyone who applied was necessarily qualified for it, but just to give an idea that not everyone who applies gets into these programs. And then you will notice there are some that say something like significantly modified, that this mod means modified. Those are special ed programs that are just for students who require a separate classroom. So you can ignore those as you're looking through. But I think it is really handy. It's hard to know sometimes what programs schools have. And it changes annually. I used to tell people about the game and web design program at Amundsen, and then it disappeared. And the only reason I found out was because I was walking a parent through this page for Amundsen. So it's a really good place to look for up-to-date information. And then again, like I said, to see what some of these numbers are like for the different programs. Because like Maddie said, a lot of students get into this mindset of everyone's going to Lincoln Park, everyone's going to selective enrollment. At Nettlehurst, less than a quarter of our students go to selective enrollment every year. So it isn't where everyone goes, and it's not the right fit for everyone. So it's just good to have realistic conversations with kids about where everyone's going to end up and what's good for them. I talk about fit a lot. Is it going to be a good fit for you? Does it have what you want? And that's, I think, a really good thing to talk about at home as well. And let's see. I know people are always curious about how many students have gone where from Nettlehurst, and I do have that on my website. So I show you over here. If you come to the high school planning page and scroll down, there is a spreadsheet. And you can see for each of the previous 4 years where everyone's gone. So 14 students went to Amundsen last year. 12 went to Lakeview. 10 went to Lane Tech. We actually only had 7 who went to Lincoln Park. So you can look at those trends and talk through them with your kid if they have it stuck in their head that everyone's going to X, Y, or Z, and see the really varied lists of schools here. Okay. Any other questions? There have been really, really good questions all along from everyone. Any questions before we wrap up and say goodbye? like Ms. Dan said, I do have this virtual bulletin board. All of the counselors, not all, but a lot of the counselors in our network, we all worked together to make sure that as many flyers got posted here as possible. So this is a pretty good place to come and check out what's coming up. And some things on here are more than just flyers. They might be links to those virtual tours that Maddie mentioned. So this is also worth checking out just to see what's there. There might be lookbooks or links to videos or links to admissions pages. We do feature flyers from private schools here. I don't know a ton about the private school application process just because it varies from school to school. So I generally recommend reaching out to them for perusing their websites to find the most up-to-date information. But I'm also happy to click through websites to find that info for you. Generally, the high school tours are just in fall. I know some of them do it in the spring. It's just such a heavy lift for schools to have enough staff to be there outside hours to host, and students too. So it's heavily in the fall. If you can't make it there for a tour, I would see if there are other events on their calendars, sporting events or art open houses or plays that you can go check out, especially the arts programs. They have lots of things that are open to the public to come check out. So those are good ways to get in the door. Otherwise, some schools did have shadow days. Most haven't since the pandemic. And some did have tours on weekdays, but not a lot. And most of them didn't during the pandemic. You know, we have done a couple of panels with Nettlehurst alums in the past, and so that's something that we can try to put together again. We've had a panel of we did Lakeview, a Lakeview specific panel. We were invited to a selective enrollment panel. I don't know if any of them were alums, and then maybe it was just Lakeview again. So yeah. Yes, thank you, Robbie. There is the CPS website has a map. Generally doesn't work for me, but that same page that I was at where I searched for a school, you can.
I just linked it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of searching for a school name, you can click View Schools on the school locator half, and if you put your address in. Let's see, again, it doesn't usually work for me. Let's put in, I don't know why that is, whether I'm at home or on my laptop at school, it just won't work. But it'll zoom into you and it'll tell you what your neighborhood school is. And then the lines over here are actually going to show you overlays, and you can choose CPS tiers. And then if it wants to work, there we go. You can see.
We can see, I think we can just see the school locator tab. Like,
oh, thank you. Yep, I didn't switch over once it popped open. Thanks. Okay, so overlays is over here, and then you can come select CPS tiers. And then you can see where it turns different shades of blue. So Nettlehurst is right around. I can't find Halston, but we're here. So, good questions.
if you think of other questions, you can email. I'll put my email in here too.
And you will get tons of info, especially in 8th grade from me. I do try to, I used to email every time I found out about an open house, and it's just exhausting. So I generally send a reminder email in fall when things start to pick up to 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th to say, hey, don't forget to check the virtual bulletin board for upcoming events. And then when you're in 8th grade, I send you can sign up for updates from the district, and then I will keep a running newsletter in a Google Doc of all of the highlights, so that way everything's in one place for you. If you're interested in applying for academic centers or classical, gifted programs or classical schools for a student who is in younger grade, this happens concurrently in the fall. And I'm not an expert on it, but I know where to go for info. So if you have questions, you can feel free to reach out. And yeah, email, there's a link in all of my email signatures that lets you sign up for a time. You can check my calendar and see when I'm free and sign up for an appointment. So I'm always happy to meet. Don't be shy. Okay. Well, I'm going to hit stop recording. There we go. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Maddie, wonderful job.
Thank you. I was really nervous at first, so sorry if that was a little awkward, but thanks for all your support.
No problem. You learn by doing. Thanks for showing up, everybody. We appreciate your time. Reach out with questions. We're here to help. Good night, everybody. And we'll email the deck and the recording link. You're welcome. Bye. Okay.
Okay, I just was staying on in case anyone had anything, but.
Wonderful job. Well done. I was supposed to have ordered food while we were at the beginning and I didn't. So I'm going to go do that now so we can eat tonight. But
Takeout Tuesday.
Yes, it is Takeout Tuesday. So.
Okay, I will talk to you later. Do you need help I can send it out on Thursday through the Aspen email thing?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I've got to wait for the video to process and actually post to my my drive so that I can upload it to YouTube and have a link to share. So yeah, we can look at that Thursday.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I'll see you then. Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Wait, why does it say it's still recording? It said stop.